Why do I love writing? I love writing, both actually writing myself and I love for other people to write because it's intimate. It's the most intimate thing we do. When I write something down, I have the opportunity to share what's hidden with another hidden being. What I mean is, what's hidden within me, my thoughts on some topic, I get to share with what's hidden in you, your mind. In other words, when you read what I write, if I've done my writing job well, we kind of become unified in an idea. And writing is great because, I mean, we can also do this when we're talking. We're trying to do it, in fact, when we talk to each other. But when we write something down, we have a chance to be precise, to be exact, to get it perfect. When we're just talking in a conversation, right, something might get said and I wasn't as careful as I needed to be, or you said something a little too quickly and it wasn't exactly right, and some misunderstandings come up. But in writing, I get a chance to put it on paper and I get to give you exactly what I want you to consider. What's said is said, quod scripsi scriptum. What's written is written. What I have written, I've written. So writing is a sacred task. It's a holy, intimate task. The goal of all writing is to get an idea from your mind into somebody else's mind. What are the rules for writing? Well, I've just told you the meta rule. There's one meta rule. Get an idea from your mind to your reader's mind. Any other rule or supposed rule or purported rule is a rule only to the effect that it helps you accomplish the meta rule. You might get a style book. I happen to like Strunk and White's Elements of Style. I don't see the more recent edition on my desk. It's around here somewhere, but you know, all these writing rules that you can read up on, they only matter if they help you get an idea from your mind to my mind. So, with that said, I'll just start writing a paper here. I'll put this on screen view and I'll narrate as I go. I did a test of this yesterday and it worked, so hopefully it'll still work today here. We'll do screen share. Okay. Okay. Well, it says I'm sharing the screen. You should be able to see what I write in this paper. How do I begin? There's an opening sentence. In this paper, I will consider some criticisms of Plato's theory of forms. I like this sentence. This sentence tells you exactly what this paper will be about. And you might think to yourself, well, it doesn't do much to grab anyone's attention. True, it doesn't. It doesn't. If you don't care about Plato's theory of forms, you likely won't keep reading. So what? Okay. When it comes to being clever in your writing, that should come later. First, get your ideas out as clearly as possible. Then later on, if you find something clever that you want to add, okay, fine. Also, rhetorical flourishes in a paper, rhetorical flourishes tend to come more naturally the more you've thought about something. So I don't expect great rhetorical flourishes. And I can't even give an example of a rhetorical flourish right now. I mean, not for the paper I'm about to write. But I mean, if you're not thinking of great rhetorical flourishes for your own paper, I'm not surprised. I mean, you've only been thinking about Aquinas, you know, for a couple of months maybe. And you've only been thinking about your paper topic for less than that. So here, this opening sentence tells you exactly what the paper is going to be about. You might have noticed as I was writing this second sentence that I revised as I was going. I said, in the first part, I will summarize, and I almost said Plato's theory of forms. Well, then I realized I had just used the exact same phrase in the first sentence, so I reconsidered what I was doing. Now, today, let me say a little bit about this, actually. This is pretty important. Today, as I'm writing, I'll do some revision as I write. Now, this is my normal writing process. I do revise sentences as I write. And today, I'm going to do that even a little more than I usually do. Now, even though I usually do revise as I write, I want to say this. That does not save me any time, or at least it saves me very little time when it comes to revising the paper. A paper still has to be proofread. It still has to be revised. Parts still have to get rewritten, even if you revise as you write. I actually suggest, I mean, if you're still a younger writer, if you're still getting used to writing papers, if you're getting used to writing in general, don't revise while you write. Just get your ideas out there and then go back and revise. That's a way many good writers do write that way. They just get the words out, then they go back and mess them around, so to speak. Me, I like to do a little bit of revision as I write. So if you see me doing that, that's fine. You can do that too. But and I probably won't be able to record for you my revision process. But just because you won't see my process of revising and rewriting doesn't mean it's not important. Revising is more important than writing. But today, just to show you my thought processes about writing, I'm going to do a lot more revision in progress, so to speak. So let's go back to the paper. In the first part, I will summarize the theory and provide some background information. In part 2, I will consider, you know what, I'm going to use the Arabic numeral 2 because I'm using the word I next. Maybe I'll just spell it out. I mean, these are the kind of things I can go back and change when I'm revising. These are cosmetic decisions that have to get made. Can't really avoid, oh, you know what, and here's what I'll do. In the second part, notice how that's got a nice symmetry. First part, second part. And it saves me from repeating the word to. Objections. I like that. That's a nice short sentence, isn't it? In the second part, I will consider 2 objections. I believe that the second of these 2 objections is the more serious of the 2. Okay, what have I done here? This is my introduction. This is all I'm writing for the introduction. This is called signposting, okay? Signposting is a beautiful thing. And in your first draft, you should signpost the hell out of your paper. You can always go back and delete some of the signposting if there's too much. Signposting is when you tell the reader what you're going to do. Why would you do this? To make it easier for your reader. Having read these first few sentences, my reader now knows exactly what to expect. And if my reader is already familiar with Plato's theory of forms, it tells my reader that they can skim the first section, right? Don't get bogged down in the first section. Move on to the second section. Also, to go back to what I was talking about in the beginning, about writing as a way of sharing yourself. What am I sharing here? I'm sharing my thinking on Plato's theory of forms. And I'm sharing it first by sharing what it is, right? Just the straight, I mean, if you don't know what Plato's theory of forms is, you and I will become one mind in the first section. But my thinking on Plato's theory of forms, of course, it has some depth to it. I've asked you to have some depth to your thinking about something. That's why you're writing a term paper. I need some depth here. Well, I'm going to write thinking that whoever's reading this might be clever, might be objecting to the theory as I describe it. And I'm trying to anticipate what those objections are. And having anticipated them in the second section of the paper, I'll consider them and I'll share my thinking on them. Section headers. I love section headers. Part 1, Plato's theory of forms. Or I could have called this part 1. In fact, I think I told a lot of you to call part 1 exposition, so I will do the same. Exposition. Now, I've already thought quite a bit about how I want to organize my exposition. I have decided that the easiest way to convey this information to a reader, and remember, in exposition, you write for somebody who's never studied philosophy. You write as if you're writing for an intelligent high school senior. Now, an intelligent high school senior, I would expect, has heard of Plato, but maybe not Plato's theory of forms. Now, and I've decided that the way to organize my exposition is to state the theory. I'm just going to put it out there. Then I'll state the argument for the theory. So let's actually do a subsection. 1.1. I'm calling it the theory in general. These titles don't matter a whole lot. I can go back and change those, but the idea is here I'm just going to state the theory. Some of you may remember this theory of Plato's from your philosophy classes before, but if not, you'll learn it just by reading what I have to write. Plato's theory of form states that for any general term T, there is an ideal perfect form of T which all particular instances of T imitate. That's the theory of forms in a sentence. By the way, this is just a stylistic decision I've made kind of on the spot here. Don't worry too much about it, but I think the term T, I'll use a lowercase, So I'm talking about a word there. Uppercase T refers to things. For example, examples are great. I love examples. For example, penguin is a general term. Let me make a comment about quotation marks. When do you use quotation marks? You use them when you're quoting someone. That's the only time, is when you're quoting someone. Well, who am I quoting here? Well, I'm quoting the word itself, actually. I mean, I'm talking about the word. I'm talking about the word blue. So I'm quoting anybody who uses the word blue. Courageous, penguin, right? I'm talking about the words themselves. I call them, I'm quoting myself here, I call them general terms. I call them, so when you use quotation marks like this, ask yourself, can you read it as saying, the quote marks kind of mean the word itself. So for example, the word penguin itself. Other general terms include the word blue or the word courageous. I call these by the word general terms because they can be applied to multiple things in a non-arbitrary way. General terms differ from names. Okay. I'm okay with how I've written this. It could be a little bit better. It could be a little bit clearer, I think. I'm going to highlight it for myself. I highlight things just to say to myself, go back and see how you can make that a little bit clearer. Consider rewriting some of these sentences. So what's this paragraph about? This paragraph is just getting Plato's theory out there. Let's be consistent with how I speak about forms. I need to explain this theory just a little more here. I think that somebody reading that last paragraph might not see the full force of Plato's theory. So I'm going to write a little short paragraph just for emphasis. I might have to do more than a paragraph here. Trying to find the right words in philosophy is difficult. I want to say world, domain. Astonishing upshot of this theory that there's an entire realm. I might find a better word later here. In fact, let's highlight it. Highlight it to remind myself to think about other word choices. By the way, warning, warning, warning. Throw away your thesaurus. Just get rid of it. When I say I'm looking for other words, that means I'm going to think really hard about whether there's another word that does. Thesauruses, I don't want to say they're useless. They do have a purpose, but you don't have to worry about them. In general, I find thesauruses serve no purpose but to make undergraduate writing worse. Perceptible to our senses. There's an entire realm of I kind of like the word realm now. Sometimes it's helpful to be careful by saying there's a sense, right? Why do I say this? Because I'm anticipating somebody who says, well, what do you mean that this realm, the world that includes you and me and my pet penguin, isn't real? Is it a dream? It seems real. Well, okay, I want to say that there's a sense in which this world is less real. might be helpful to consider an allegory that Plato himself used to elucidate his theory. I feel like this gets awkward after Plato. I think Plato uses horses, so I'll use horses. I don't think Plato uses trees, but I'm just going to add it anyway. Oh, warning, another warning here. Do not try to sell this paper to somebody in another class. That person will get in serious trouble. Throughout this paper, there are bound to be some phrases, some little buzzwords, which any philosophy professor in the country will instantly recognize as having been written by another philosophy professor. You won't recognize them, but I will. So if somebody tries to use this paper, they won't even know what they need to change to get away with it. The shadows which they see are being formed by objects passing behind them, such objects such as horses or trees. Do I need this word objects a second time? That's an interesting question. I might be able to delete it. I have to mull over that. Be symmetrical here. Okay. Look how long this sentence is. That's a long sentence. I can probably shorten that. Like prisoners in the cave, Plato. We see around us mere imitations of trees, courage. I want the living things to go together. Have I used the word ideal before in this essay? Ideal just means immaterial, lacking physical parts. I want to explain that for the reader. Again, this high school senior might not know what ideal means. Ideal means it's like idea. It doesn't have matter. Okay. Second paragraph, before explaining why Plato held this view, it might be helpful to consider an allegory that Plato himself. Plato asks us to imagine a cave in which prisoners and blah, blah, blah. By the way, I have no idea if Zoom's going to cut me out at some point. This video might be in multiple parts if it does. Having been chained from birth, the prisoners never see the horses or trees, only their shadows on the wall. The prisoners therefore live their lives thinking that the shadow of the horse is a horse. The shadow of a tree is really a tree. Like the prisoners in the cave, thinks Plato, we see around us mere imitations of trees, penguins, or courage. The real tree is the ideal form of the tree. The same is true for all the things which we label with general terms. That's okay for our first draft. I don't want to say outrageous. I almost said outrageous. That's not that's too strong. That's too strong. Okay, that's the argument. But again, I would not expect even a very smart 18-year-old to read these last couple of sentences and really understand what I'm talking about. So, I think an example is in order. No, I don't want to make that parenthetical, actually. That's going to be a really important point. Let's get rid of this adverb. I don't like adverbs. I'm using those ellipses, by the way, because as you know, pi is an irrational number that goes on forever. Okay, I'm just trying to think of whether I've said enough to really make the point about Plato's theory here, about the argument for Plato's theory. That's what this comments section is about, is in the exposition section, okay, in the exposition section of a paper, you're the teacher, and by the time your reader is done reading the exposition section, they should begin to see like, oh, this is actually a pretty good idea. I mean, I could get on board with this, or at the very least, see how some intelligent people are getting on board with it. all I'm doing is thinking about how to make the exposition complete and convincing here. I want to consider knowledge that doesn't seem universal. How do I want to put this sentence? Notice here, remember, writing is about being precise. We get to actually be precise here. So I refer to Plato's argument. What is Plato's argument? You should know. You should know what Plato's argument is. It takes several sentences. Here's Plato's argument. Plato's argument is knowledge is of the universal and unchanging, yet nothing in the material universe is universal and unchanging. So knowledge must be of something other than the material universe. That's Plato's argument. If I say, what is Plato's argument? And you say, knowledge must be of something other than the material universe, I'll say, that's Plato's conclusion. That's the position Plato is arguing for. But his argument is actually 3 sentences. Some arguments have 3 sentences, some have more than 3. Be exact. I almost said clearly, but just in case somebody wants to say, well, maybe there's no such thing as knowledge. It's a dumb objection that I don't want to consider, so I'll just take the easy way here. Nevertheless, there seems to be a kind of which Weeks can't be Thanksgiving, only a day can. Hmm. This is a good point for a footnote because I'm going to consider something so nitpicky here. I need a footnote to nitpick. Oh, I use my word processing program. Here it is. I don't know if that's especially helpful or not, but I'm going to leave it there for now. All I'm trying to do in this paragraph is make an argument that some of our knowledge is of the universal and unchanging. Good general writing rule, I mean, is try to put most important word at the beginning, second most important word at the end. So that's why this final sentence kind of went through a few iterations. Plato's theory of forms, that's important, is meant to account for the possibility of such knowledge, right? That's what I want to get across here. Okay, not a bad little exposition section. Well, I'm going to consider objections in a moment here, but maybe this is a good time for a break here. Stop share. Okay, we'll take a little break here. Then we'll come back and work on some objections. I've got 2 objections I've thought about for this paper. You know, at this point, I might go back and rethink some of this yellow stuff, rewrite some of the yellow stuff. All of this I could rewrite. I'm okay with this for, you know, if an undergraduate turned in these 3 paragraphs, I'd be fine with that. I could definitely do better. I feel like, but I don't know if I'll have time today. But okay, well, hopefully you've learned a little bit about writing already. And maybe you'll learn some more when we come back. See you in part 2. My song is called Alice's Restaurant. It's not Alice in the Restaurant.